What's happening, friends? Welcome once again. This is Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Crouse Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse athletics. My name is Brent Axe. You are you. We're so glad you're here tonight. I guess because I'm not sure what we were watching out there, other than a 96-70 loss by Syracuse in the SEC ACC Challenge. Which, by the way, as we speak, guys, the SEC is just taking the ACC's lunch money, absolutely destroying them. Football is another case. The fact that Alabama got ranked ahead of Miami in the college football playoff rankings is such a joke. I could do a whole show about that, but we'll save that rant for another time here. 96-70 the final score. Syracuse comes into this game, mind you, without J.J. Starling, 22-point underdogs, which I am fairly certain, I am not 100% sure. I have not locked down my research on this. It's a little hard to research these things, but I am fairly certain that is the biggest point spread that Syracuse has ever been as an underdog. And if it's not, it's near the top of the list unequivocally, right? And Tennessee they covered the point spread easily, 96-70. There are some shows that I think you got to focus on X's and O's and focus on the game. This is not going to be one of those shows. This is going to be one of those macro shows that asks a lot of questions. I'm going to heavily feature our Syracuse Sports Insiders tonight because I really sensed a tide shift amongst them, wherever you want to go, social media, the produce aisle at Wegmans. Were questions that people had about Adrian Autry and how he runs this team and about this team itself. And it's starting to spill over here. And I realize it's only December 3rd and you can't be asking macro questions after every game, but there are times it really smacks you in the face. And this is one of those. Syracuse is now 6-16 in the last 3 seasons on either ESPN or a broadcast network, like if you play on an ABC, a CBS, something of that nature. That's when the audiences are at their biggest. Syracuse plays Tennessee after the college football playoff show. There's a big audience for that show. It spills over. The ACC-SEC Challenge is interesting. Tennessee's the third-ranked team in the country. Point being, Syracuse is in yet another big primetime spot. And for a half of basketball, despite the fact that Tennessee outscored Syracuse on second-chance points, 12-0 in the first half, absolutely dominated Syracuse points in the paint, 24-10. And for the love of God, why can't Syracuse make a free throw? I know. What year is it, Brent? That's happened many years. I understand that. Hashtag free throws matter. As you know, Uncle Brent says all the time, they're going to halftime 3 of 10 at the free throw line. But they're only down by 10. I mean, Tennessee is one of the best teams in the country. Statistically, they are the best defensive team in the country. And you're Syracuse and you're shooting 56%, and you're in this thing. The second half could not be more of a listless performance, maybe the expected performance, and maybe it fell back to the median and where it should be. Syracuse gets outscored in the second half of this game, 51-35. I take 2 positives out of this game, and it's barely 2. One is Elijah Moore is a great basketball player. And Elijah Moore, as you guys know, I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, should be a starter on this team because Jaquan Carlos should not be a starter on this team. And you know who had the most the most minutes in this game? Jaquan Carlos. And the reason given, want to be fair here, I have not watched Adrian Autry's press conference. I have some quotes from Adrian Autry's press conference, so all in context, right? And I don't want to take them out of context. But I did see this quote on why Carlos got the most minutes tonight, 37 minutes. Quote, he's our only ball handler. He was the only guy that could handle the pressure of Tennessee. Carlos, 7 points, 4 assists tonight. And, yeah, he didn't turn the ball over, but 2 times against Tennessee's great defense, pressure defense, one of the best defensive teams in the country. What Rick Barnes has done to get that team to buy into defense is incredible. It'd be nice to see here in Syracuse, to see a team buy into anything at this point, really. When you watch these guys, as we'll get to here in a moment, I kind of what my big point of this show is. But Carlos is not a 37-minute guy. He's not a 27-minute guy. He's not a 17-minute guy. He can't defend. And the fact that that's your reasoning, he's the only guy that can handle the ball against, mind you, a top 3 team. And again, I know JJ's out tonight. I get that. But the fact that one player is out of your lineup should not be a death knell. Should not be, oh, God, throw up your hands and it's all over kind of thing. You are Syracuse basketball. You should be able to absorb the blow of losing a player like J.J. Starling, which I'm not a doctor. I just play one on a podcast, but losing a guy with it's a broken left hand of sorts. I don't know if it's a wrist, a hand, a thumb, or what, but that's a month. He's out for a month, right? They did not say that. That's just me. Maybe Autry addressed it in the presser and I missed it, but he's not coming back anytime soon. So you'll get JJ back once ACC play starts to hit its groove, but then he's got to get back in the game. It's his non-shooting hand, but that messes everything up. Like, that's almost the worst thing you could have as an injury as a basketball player. The only thing being worse would be your shooting hand, right? So you miss JJ for a month, but that should not sink your battleship on December 3rd. It hurts. Yeah, it's not football where you have to make adjustments, but you do lose guys to injuries, depth, things happen. It's a 4-month grind. I understand that. But that should not be a feeling of when that story came out earlier today that you're like, it's over. In no way, shape, or form is this an NCAA tournament team. I mean, when the net ranking came out earlier this week, which Tennessee was number 1 in, by the way, guys, do you know how hard it is to work your way up the ladder from 177? Love or hate the net rankings. The net rankings have flaws. What I like about the net rankings, frankly, it's truth serum. It tells you exactly where you stand at all times in terms of, are you going to make the tournament? You may not like the process in which they decide it. I understand that, but it's truth serum. 177. And you should be punished, by the way, for beating Lemoyne by 4 and struggling with Colgate and Youngstown State. I like that the net ranking holds you accountable for that you got to beat those teams the way NCAA tournament-worthy teams are supposed to beat those teams, right? That's one thing. You're playing Tennessee on ESPN tonight, and for a half, you stayed in it. But the feeling was kind of like, well, what's wrong with Tennessee as opposed to what Syracuse is doing right? Which kind of brings me to my big point tonight. Oh, the only other positive tonight other than Elijah Moore is we found out that Chance Westry is a real human being and he's not a hologram sitting there on sitting there on the bench. He's a real boy, right? Yes, he exists. Played 3 minutes at the end of the game. We'll see if he plays more. So, hallelujah. The questions will cease in Uncle Brent's texts. Is Chance Westry going to play? Is Chance Westry going to play? Well, he played tonight, and he's capable of playing at least a few minutes of basketball. So we'll see if he continues to be a factor at all for this team. Frankly, Syracuse could use it. With JJ out, can he work his way into the rotation? Will it help? Is he the savior sitting on the bench? I don't know, but he did play tonight, and he's a real human being. It's like that commercial you see this time of the year with the M&Ms. They do exist, right? Yeah, so that's it. What is the Orange Standard? That's my question. What is the Orange Standard? Because we're in this time of the year when basketball crosses over with football, right? Signing day is Wednesday. The football season just ended. Syracuse 9-3. The buzz is building about what bowl game they're going to go to, what signing day is going to bring, what the transfer portal is going to bring, right? The tide has turned on that. People are more interested and engaged in football than basketball. Point blank, period. The old joke used to be, when is it basketball season? Now people are saying, when is it football season again? That tide has turned. The other tide that has turned, which goes back to the question I just asked, what is the Orange Standard? And here's why I wanted to make the football comparison. From the minute Fran Brown walked on campus, his message has been what? DART. Detailed, accountable, relentless, and tough. No matter what, you have this thing that you can go to. It is the standard of Syracuse football. He says it in every interview he does. It's how they live, and it is the standard that they set. Win, lose, you go back to what from DART was applied to how you practice, how you play, how you live. Autry talks all the time about this Orange Standard. They are somewhat 40 games. I don't have the exact number in front of me, right? Into the Autry era, and I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. This team does not have an identity. I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for, and I don't think fans know what they're supposed to be looking for either. You have got to give this fan base something to latch onto, something to believe in. Fran Brown did that. and brought receipts. Now that this team went 9-3 and the results, it's 1 year. We'll see if it continues. It's a hell of a schedule they got next year, and they got to find a quarterback to replace McCord. But see, the thing is, with all those questions comes, ironically, a term that Dino Babers was fond of, faith. He has earned that leverage. Fran Brown has earned that leverage for now because there's results. Dart, 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 dart. Believe in this. This is my thing. 9-3, right? Okay. We got you. Kyle McCord, not going to be easy. You got this, coach. We trust you. 33, it could be more. We'll see. Recruits signed for 2025, the most in the country. All right, we got this. Now, the thing that Autry does have is recruiting. Donnie Freeman's the highest rated recruit since Carmelo Anthony. Elijah Moore, we said it tonight, the one positive tonight, great player. Elijah Moore plays the way everybody on that court should play, and he's a freshman. Elijah Moore plays to the orange standard. And I don't want to pick on other guys because some do and some don't, but for the most part, this team does not give you a reason to watch them. Now, individually as people, they're great guys. I like talking to them. I like talking to a number of them. As a team, and I'm talking from a pure basketball standpoint here, so don't take me, I sound like a coach, don't take me out of context, but from a pure basketball standpoint, this team is not likable. They don't give you anything to latch onto other than the fact that I am a Syracuse basketball fan and I will watch the games. Football does. Football has an identity and they give you something to believe in. This basketball team, the Orange Standard, what is it? And I'm going to go to our Syracuse Sports Insiders here shortly because I think they asked a lot of great questions tonight. But I noticed a huge tide shift, not only in that there is infinitely more interest in football right now than men's basketball, but in Autry himself and how he coaches. Being fair, it's still early in his tenure, JJ's, all those things. But guys, the measure, fair or not, how we measure coaches and how this, what the standard is, to use that term, you don't get the benefit of the doubt that you used to. You don't get the time that you used to because we're in the portal NIL era, which everyone's dealing with, by the way. That's not an excuse. And he'd be the first to tell you that. Everybody's dealing with the portal. Everybody's dealing with new players. Everybody's dealing with every year you hit the reset button on what your team is. But what you can control and what you can do is give people something to latch on to. What is it about Adrian Autry, the basketball coach, that makes you say, yes, that's my guy? Initially, it was that he's a Syracuse guy. He's been here all along. He will continue the Orange Standard, all that, right? That's the launching pad. But at some point, you got to show receipts. You got to show you as a coach are doing something that I believe in as a fan to say, okay, yeah, I'm with you. But what is that? For football, I know exactly what it is. After one season, Fran Brown was hired almost to the day a year ago. In a year, I know what that is. You know what that is. Adrian Autry is in his second year as head coach. Multiple years as an assistant coach, back to the 1990s as a player. I don't know what that is. And that's a problem. So to our insiders we go. Matt W. says, as I'm dropping stuff here, remember when it was fun to watch Syracuse basketball? That's it. How you play the game matters. Elijah Moore was the only enjoyable player out there with some noted exceptions. Eddie Lampkin plays hard, but he's dealing with back issues. And I think other guys do play hard at times, but collectively as a group, they don't. Collectively as a group, this team lags. They're what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a word. They're unorganized. They are unorganized. They hang on the perimeter. Like, what am I watching? What plays are you running? What is happening out there? Please, somebody tell me. If you see it and I'm not seeing it, please tell me. Please tell me what it is. Maybe I'm just a dummy. But this is what you guys are telling me too. And these are some of the smartest fans in the country that know basketball, know what they're watching. And they're texting me saying, what's going on here? What is this? As Matt goes on to say, Brent, it seems like unless there's hardcore fans, most of us are completely written off the season. It's not fun. They're not competitive. And to be honest, I've got other things to do. Like Matt's out already. Rob M says this team is just blah. They don't have any strengths, lots of weaknesses. I don't see potential. They don't guard a lick. I hope I'm wrong, but this team will be lucky to be 500. And you're like, oh, well, Brent, you're just being negative. Guys, this is what my texts say. I wish I could put that. There's probably a way I can do it, and I'm just not technologically savvy enough. I wish I could just throw up the screen where I get all my texts from the insiders, and this is all I'm getting. And these are reasonable fans. This is not just a bunch of grumpy gusses, which you get on social media, which is one of the things I love about our insiders, by the way, is it's not just a constant stream of negativity, but they are real, and they get it and they understand it. That's all I'm getting from this. So I'm not picking and choosing text to back up my point. Brent, you're being too negative. Where have we heard that before? No, this is what you're saying. This is what you're telling me, what you're seeing. And I'm relaying it out there. Jack M., I lived long enough to see Syracuse win a basketball national championship, and now I've lived long enough to see them become a mid-major. How do I disagree with that? With the numbers and trends and the lack of a standard that I'm seeing, how do I push back on that? They have not been ranked since December of 2018. They've missed the tournament 3 years in a row. How am I mean, they're not a mid-major, but they play like one, right? Collectively. Brian M., this team is stagnant, isn't improving, and Autry at this point feels like he's got a blatant lack of feel for the game. Loyal at the point where it is hurting the team. John P., I know Autry has a orange standard, whatever that standard is. I'm assuming it's not this. I know he's not a terrible recruiter. You don't get Sadiq White and Cayenne Anthony just by showing up. You got to put in the work. But when it comes to the games in the transfer portal, I'm just not seeing him do well in that adjustment. I think he's overwhelmed and isn't allowing the players to reach their full expectations. Lacey says he should have a lineup figured out by now. He should know what works well together by now. This constant shuffling is not working, and I feel like he's either choosing to ignore that fact or just doesn't seem care to make a decision. I mean, it's like hockey lines at this point, and I understand that it's early December. He is trying to find a lineup, and you got to make an adjustment without JJ. You want to be fair about missing JJ. You got to find kind of the right thing. But for him to say Carlos is the only guy that can handle the ball against a team like Tennessee's defense, that is a problem. And it's not true, by the way. Is Kyle Cuff that much worse than Carlos? I'm going to say it again. How much worse can Kyle Cuff be? That Kyle Cuff plays 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Kyle Cuff, who was good enough to go to Kansas and good enough to transfer to Syracuse, is playing 4 minutes. And Jaquan Carlos from Hofstra, who comes to this level and has struggled against teams not named Tennessee, plays 37 minutes. He's that much better. I just refuse to believe that. And again, I'm talking from a basketball standpoint here. I want to get personal because I like Carlos. I've talked to him in the locker room a bunch. He's a good kid, good young man, as I should say. But if you're asking me to analyze basketball, he's not even doing the things that Autry says they brought him in here to do. Now, they're at practice every day, and I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I wish I could go to practice and make this determination myself. They don't let us in practice anymore. There used to be open practices. That's not the case anymore. God bless Jim Boeheim. A lot of things I disagree with Jim Boeheim on, and especially in recent years. But you know what? You can go to practice and see for yourself. Why can't I go to practice and make that determination? I can, but of course, when I talk to people that are there for their own self-interest, they're going to say, oh, yeah, man, Carlos is that much better than Cuff. Can I see it with my own eyes? Because I don't get to see enough of it in games. The most important thing. I don't care. I'll pull out the Allen Iverson line there. Practice. Talk about practice. Is Kyle Cuff that much worse? That he can't ball handle against Tennessee or any of teams before that, by the way? That's kind of a you problem. If that is the case, that he's the only guy. That Carlos, the only guy that could ball handle against Tennessee. Like, what a self-own that is. What a self-admission of what a lack of depth you have on this team, if that is the case. That Syracuse freaking basketball has one player on the roster that can ball handle against Tennessee. I mean, how the mighty have fallen. That's sad. That's sad to see that. And I want to be fair. I want to get the whole context of, but that I saw that quote and I said, well, hold on a second here. Come on. Let us move on. Robbie T says the old adage for basketball at any levels, to get better, you got to play better teams. Tennessee's second half was phenomenal. Hopefully Starling isn't out for too long. Yeah, Tennessee in the second half outscored Syracuse 51-35. They were 2 of 15 from three-point range in the first half. They end up 10 of 29. I knew Syracuse was going to have trouble in the paint. There's just certain things you have to kind of concede. Syracuse shot 49% against the best defensive team in the country tonight. 12 of 21 at the free throw line. 3 of 10 in the first half. Free throws have been an issue for years. I can't figure it out, but obviously they don't make it a priority. Free throws are fundamentals. They're basics. Not everybody shoots 90%, but the way that, and it's not one guy you're picking on here. This is not when Shaq would go to the free throw line and they do hack-a-Shaq, right? No one makes free throws on this team. It's because they don't make it a priority. They do not emphasize how important they are. Clearly they don't, because they keep missing them at a rate you cannot miss free throws in college basketball to be competitive. If you're just at a basic average rate in the first half, you go into halftime against the number 3 team in the country on ESPN down 45-42. And maybe with the thought of, holy crap, we're in this thing. And then in the second half, you get run. Not because of free throws, partially because of free throws, but because of some of the other things we're talking about here that you are recognizing and seeing. As Frankie S. says, I am afraid I have no words of wisdom tonight, just frustration. This team is not going anywhere this year, and I still can't figure out the right lineup 7 games in. No defensive identity, no offensive game plan, and I know Eddie is playing hurt, but Syracuse is giving him a lot of money. He's got to be a major factor. That is a great point, Frankie. These guys are paid now, which takes the margin of error down. Love it or hate it, love the NIL era or not. These are paid professional players now, in a sense, right? You are testing, and I understand the patience of a sports fan can be razor thin sometimes, but that's the message I'm trying to get across to Autry, to this program, to John Wildhack, to anybody who wants to listen here. The tide turned tonight. Your fan base now has eyebrows fully arched up, wondering if Adrian Autry can coach this team, wondering what the orange standard is, wondering what they have to latch onto, what they have to root for, other than the fact, go team. Football did that. The genius of Fran Brown, and again, he's got to keep it up, but what Fran Brown was able to do in 1 year is nothing short of amazing. He made football more interesting than basketball. He got people to buy in. And look, in 2018, we all thought Dino Babers turned this thing around, but that is an eternity ago in the realm of college football. There was no NIL in 2018, at least legally. The transfer portal was a thought in somebody's head. It was not the dominant, preeminent thing that we're talking about more than recruiting in December. And, oh, by the way, Fran Brown's the best recruiter in the country. But, again, the most important thing that Fran Brown brought, put aside the wins and the tangible things, a feeling and identity and something to believe in. Yet another ESPN, national television. I have no faith, I have no belief, I have no sense that the orange standard will come through and Syracuse is going to fight and come through against a top 5 team in the country. That's a problem. And I think that's the biggest problem. The worst thing you can become is irrelevant. The worst thing you can become, as somebody put it in one of our earlier texts, is blah, is boring, not worth my time. I got Syracuse basketball fans. And again, these are some of the smartest fans in the country. These are some of the most passionate fans in the country. And I know I'm just promoting our Syracuse Sports Insider text service, but they are, because I read your texts every day. I've met them. I talk to them. These are smart fans. And they're telling me, like, dude, like, I got people texting me like, I'm going to catch up on the Penguin tonight. All right. I got to wrap presents. I got better things to do. In what world are we living in? where people have better things to do than watch Syracuse basketball. When Syracuse basketball played not so long ago, I remember this, wasn't that long ago, the world stopped in Syracuse, New York, when Syracuse plays basketball. Home away on the moon, the world stops, and you watch that team, and you are engaged in that team. And yeah, they're going to lose some games, and you're going to get frustrated at Boeheim, and you're going to say, we're fans. You're going to say things, but you know what you were? You were into it, and you knew what to believe, and you knew what the standard was. They literally say Orange Standard. It is in Autry's office. It is the main hashtag they use, and no one knows what it is. And I got people texting me. I got better things to do. How has the world turned upside down when that's the case? And it's December 3rd, and there's a long season to go. They could make me eat these words, but what do you see? Okay? I asked this rhetorically, and I also asked this for real. What do you see that makes you say, they can turn this around? They can go through an ACC schedule. I mean, that's it. That's all you got left. Because you lost another, I didn't think they were going to beat Tennessee. You kind of conceded they'd lose this thing. But because they could, and Texas Tech and Texas, if they split that, you still got Maryland to come. But you have put everything on an ACC schedule. And guys, I don't know if that's going to be good enough. Last year, the ACC, I think, got wrongly, how can I put this, judged by the net rankings. And the ACC, let's just say it, they got screwed last year. Look at tonight. The ACC is getting run by the SEC. The ACC might not save you. The strength and reputation of this conference, and this could change, this could change. But right now, that might not save you. Like, how many huge wins are there in the ACC? They were, I wish I saved this stat. Maybe I did. Give me a second to see if I did save this. I saw a stat about the net rankings that somebody put out there, and it really showed like there's no middle ground. There's a few teams at the top. It was Jeff Goodman who tweeted it, and I know I've got it somewhere here, guys. I'm sorry I don't have it right here in front of me. I know I wanted to save that for moments like this when I knew I'd have to break it out. So I'm sorry I can't find it. I thought I had it right here on my computer. But what Jeff Goodman tweeted the other day, let me see if I can just find it on his Twitter feed. Jeff tweets a lot, so it might take me a second here. But the point he made about the ACC and the net ranking, you got to look at this and say, look, is Syracuse going to be able to go into this league and find some wins and climb up from 177 in the net ranking? That's a huge number to overcome. Now I got to find it because I think it's on my Twitter feed. Give me a sec here, guys. Sorry, live show. Here it is. Okay, I found it. The 5 worst net rankings among power conference teams: Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Miami, Seton Hall, Virginia Tech. What do 4 out of those 5 teams have in common? Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Miami, Seton Hall, Virginia Tech. Yeah. That's my point. There's only a limited amount of top net teams right now in the ACC that you have a chance to knock off. And you're telling me that Syracuse can run with Carolina? They can run with Duke? The way that they are, the way that they play, forget the talent and some things that are just, it's how they play. It's how they play the game. There's a certain orange standard you have to play by, which you're not, no matter who's in and out of the lineup, who's injured or not, if you're going to beat those teams, which we did see, to be fair, a little bit against Texas and Texas Tech, that we did see in those. They didn't lose to Lemoyne. They didn't lose to Youngstown State. They didn't lose to Colgate. I'll give you that, but you're a 4-3 basketball team on December 3rd with a 177 net ranking, a Ken Pom rating of, I think, 102 today. Like, it's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. I think we got a couple more here from our insiders. Mark B. And guys, this is what my feed is flooded with. What's the offense? ISO hero ball. To me, it comes down to Red having no idea how to coach the offense. From Donnie P. I really want Autry to succeed. And Let me finish this and I'll react to that. I really want Autry to succeed, but I'm coming to the conclusion that although he's a great guy and a good recruiter, he's not a good coach. His team both years is talented but unprepared, undisciplined, and unmotivated. Sorry. Don, don't be sorry. That's what I see. That's what you see. And I'm going to go back to your first comment there. I really want Autry to succeed. I think everybody does. Everybody does, right? If you are invested in this program one way or the other, a fan, just whatever title you put on your desk, everybody does, right? I want Autry to succeed at Syracuse. I have to cover it objectively and point out the flaws when they're right in front of me. But if he succeeds, that means the program's succeeding. That means people are happy. That means basketball is interesting again. Like, it all flows from there. I'm not rooting for it per se because I can't root for the team. But, I mean, if you're asking me, do I want Adrian Autry to be a successful coach? Yes. Yes, I do. But what Don is saying here is what a lot of people are saying. From Jim B, not that Jim B, who says, I don't know what the identity of this team is. It's just like there's a bunch of guys. Let's throw them on the court and see what happens. I don't know or see what the offense or defense is. There are 50 texts like that I did not put on this screen. That's a problem. When you are presenting something to people and they don't know what they want to believe in you, but they don't know what they're watching and they don't know what the identity is. As a football fan, when you watch Syracuse football, you know to the core what that is. That helps. Right? It's almost gimmicky marketing. Guess what? It works. Advertising works. Marketing works. That's why these football coaches say this stuff, right? So what is the orange standard? If I don't know, after watching it, after all this time, clearly you guys don't know, after watching it all this time, you play a team like Tennessee, where, as one of our texters said, and to steal the old line from Caddyshack, how do you measure yourself against other golfers? By height. How do you measure yourself as a program? Well, when you play the best teams in the country, how do you do? On national television again. 96-70. That's how you did. You lost by 26, which isn't even, when you look at the list of all-time losses, points-wise, I thought it would be higher than that. It's actually not, because they lost by 36 to North Carolina last year, and there was a couple of big losses in recent years, even in the tail end of the Boeheim era. That makes a 26-point loss to the number 3 team in the country. Dare I say it, feel normal. Like, that's what they do now. That's who they are. That's who they are on December 3rd. There's a lot of basketball to be played, but given how things go these days, now that you've got a major injury on this team, do they have it in them to overcome this? There's time. I'll tell you what they do have, guys. They have time. They have time. There are lineups out there where this team does play to that orange standard. Elijah Moore showed that he can do it. Donnie Freeman didn't have his best game tonight. Donnie Freeman tonight, 10 points, 4 rebounds. He's going to have those freshman moments, but the guy had, Elijah Moore and Donnie Freeman led that team to their last win. 2 freshmen. But you have players that are supposed to be leaders and veterans that don't play to that standard. And you kind of, I don't think you can take Chris Bell out of the starting lineup right now because JJ's out. But just on a basketball analysis, just tell me why he's in the starting lineup. Tell me why he gets the minutes that he does. He had 12 points tonight. He was 2 of 6 from three-point range, 5 of 10 shooting, 5 rebounds. He led the team in rebounding, so I'll give you that. But game in and game out, it's not there. Chris Bell has moments, he has flashes, but Chris Bell, and again, I'm just talking from a basketball standpoint, he doesn't play starters minutes in all the areas of the court. He doesn't play to that orange standard. Autry called him out last game in the presser, not by name, but clearly knew who he was talking about, right? So you have that mix. Everybody's not on the same page. I watched Tennessee tonight, and I see a team that's on the same page, that has a standard, that knows what they are defensively, they know what they are offensively. Rick Barnes, good God, Rick Barnes, still around. Some of those guys, you're like, man, still coaching, still doing it, still kicking ass. That team could win the national championship. But you know what Syracuse used to be in those conversations? You would get excited about games like this because it could be a tournament preview. It could be It's the oldest cliche in the book. Two heavyweight champions getting into the ring. You know what it was tonight? It was Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. Jake freaking Paul, Mike Tyson. Jake Paul, during that fight, is like, you sure, guys? You sure? And you kind of bow like Jake Paul did to Tyson, but you're bowing to the past. You're bowing to something that's 20, 30 years old, not the here and now. Sorry to Tennessee that I compared you to Jake Paul, but that's what these good teams do when they play Syracuse now. They're like, hey, we like you because you used to be something, but man, what happened, right? And that's what people watching on ESPN are saying too. You tune in this game, you're just Joe College sports fan. You're like, what happened to Syracuse? That's the orange standard. That's what people see. But those are people that literally just drive by once in a while. The people and the fans that are there game in, game out, day in, day out, you don't even know what it is. And that's an issue. That's a problem. And you know what? Again, I've not watched the whole presser, but Autry said, quote, "This is not Syracuse basketball." Quote, "I didn't like the fight. We didn't have any fight at all." Quote, "We have to be tougher on that side of the ball," meaning defense. And I'll see what else he said in the presser. Maybe he said some of the same things I said tonight, but he's already said it a couple times. He's already, think of the presser last year, which worked, by the way. Like, that team turned around after that Wake Forest game and almost made a run. So we have seen it. Okay? To be fair, we have seen it. Maybe they can turn this thing around and light that fire and just play the way you're supposed to play. If you play the game the way you're supposed to play, most of the time, I get everybody's just going to have a night where things aren't going, but you do control your effort. You do control your organization, your hustle, moving on offense and defense. Like, you control that. People will back you. They'll buy into you. They'll believe in you. At least they play this way. I don't know what the offense is, but man, they play at 100 miles per hour. But when you're creating more questions than answering those questions, people are going to disengage. And they're going to worry more about what offensive tackle Syracuse is getting out of the portal than the thing that used to rule this town. And in some ways still does, right? I know I've been rambling about this for 37 minutes now, but that's what I'm getting from you. I sensed a huge tide shift tonight. And I think people are starting to really wonder about, what is this, man? And again, the football team taught us what it can be, what to believe. Just give us something to believe in. That tide will turn quick. Sports fans, come on. You start winning a few games, you start playing a certain way, you get on a roll, like, we'll forget this ever happened. That's how sports works. That's, in a lot of ways, the beauty of it, right? But I'd be concerned. Forget the basketball stuff. Forget that this is not a tournament roster. Forget some of the X's and O's. I'm talking about big-time macro-level stuff that if you don't give people something to latch onto and to believe in, like, that's the biggest problem you can have. Indifference, disengagement, right? You want people to either be angry about how you're playing or very happy about your playing. You don't want to be in the middle of boring where people just don't care. And that's kind of where you're tilting towards. But there's a lot of basketball to be played. Notre Dame is next for this team. Oh, hey, the ACC. Welcome. Yeah, you got an ACC game coming up Saturday. Noon tip-off for that one. And these are the games that Syracuse has to start piling up on the resume because your non-conference, that's shot. It's done. It's done. The only other non-conference game worth a rip that's left is Maryland. In terms of net ranking and all that, like, that's it. That's all you got. So you got to start piling up ACC wins, show you can win in a league, which we'll see what the ACC turns into, because right now its reputation isn't that great. It's not that great. It could build. It could get better. It always seems to. But right now, you got to key in on those games. Before we do go, offhand here, and I do have this right here in front of me, so just give me a second to look it up. Notre Dame. It's a shame JJ can't play in that game, of course. Always interesting when he'd play his old team. And by the way, while I'm looking this up, I think I brought this up earlier. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on a podcast, but hand injury. if it's a wrist, if it's a hand, if it's we've heard the term broken, like that's a month, right? Any doctors out there can correct me. He's not a month. He's got that's my guesstimation on this. I haven't got an official word on that. It's not an official report, but I've heard enough about broken bones and hands and things that's at least a month that you're not going to have your leading scorer, your best player. And a guy, it's a shame because JJ was really starting to explode to the basket. His 3-point shooting was better. You could just see him getting better, right? And now he's gone for a month. That stinks. 97. Notre Dame's net ranking is 97. Going into Saturday. Take care of business kind of game, or you're just going to keep sliding down that ladder. Or you're already pretty far down. 177. Ooh, mama. That's a tough ladder to climb to get the. I don't even want to say Joe Lunardi because Lunardi doesn't have a great reputation in recent years in picking the tournament, but anybody protecting the tournament, you are not on their radar in any way, shape, or form right now. Okay, I've rambled enough. Thank you so much, guys. I just had to get that off my chest because that's what you're telling me. That's what you're feeling tonight. And I don't blame you at all for that. I don't blame you at all. So we'll see if this team can build up the orange standard, if they can give something to people to latch onto and believe in and start winning some games here. There's time to turn it around. That's the one thing they got. They got time. But do they really? Thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders for their great insight. Thanks to you for tuning in. I would encourage you to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, so you can check out the Syracuse basketball postgame shows whenever you want, on demand, on your time. We thank Crouse Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. We'll catch you again. I think we're going to do a signing day pod. I'm not 100% sure. So football fans, stay tuned. I think I want to do something on signing day. I got to figure out some logistics on that. But I know I'll be with you Saturday after Syracuse takes on Notre Dame for another edition of Syracuse basketball postgame. So we will chat then. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.